Hey, this way, this way.
The 2001 and 2002 AUMF should not be repealed. Any new AUMF must not be time restricted. Instead, we must recognize that we are in an era of frequent skirmishing. Any new AUMF must not be geographically constrained.
My father used to always say there were two things you rarely heard in Washington, and that was either a moral argument or a constitutional argument.
We had a hearing today to discuss whether or not the power to declare war should come from Congress or from the president. Well, there's a bipartisan coalition, right and left, Bernie Sanders, Mike Lee, myself, Tom Udall, right and left coming together that respect the Constitution and think that there needs to be less war, basically.
Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution states very clearly, and I quote, "Congress shall have the power to declare war," end quote.
But really for the last 70 years, all the power has been leaking from Congress over to the executive. And I tell people, if you want to imagine how powerful the president is, the president's this tall and Congress is about this tall. Congress is incredibly weak, but it's our own fault. We keep electing people who give more power to the presidency.
Madison put it this way: the executive is the branch most prone to war. Therefore, the Constitution, with studied care, vested that power, the power to declare war, with the legislature. It is not enough to say Congress should authorize war. The bigger question is, where and when should we fight? Our job is not just to put a congressional imprimatur on war. The vast and important job of Congress is to decide when and where we go to war.
The reality is that we are at war anywhere and anytime the president says so. Today, our warfighters are serving in harm's way in places that have never been named in any declaration of war and facing adversaries that cannot be found in any authorization of military force.
We've been at war in Afghanistan for 17 years. Originally, we were supposed to get those who attacked us on 9/11 or anybody who helped them. And even Secretary Pompeo says there's no military solution. So if there's no military solution, why are we still in Afghanistan?
We're now in our 17th year of deployment under the 2001 authorization for the use of military force. It is not yet the case that our most junior personnel deployed were not born as of the moment that 2001 AUMF was issued by Congress, but it will soon be the case. Long before it's even fathomable that we will have retreated from these battlefields, it will be the case that this AUMF was issued before they were born.
But it gets back to the legal question then of what is the legal authorization for us to be there? And so there needs to be, Congress needs to have a big debate. Does anybody know, anybody watching this know why we're at war in Mali, why we're at war in Somalia, who are the good guys in Yemen?
Congress hasn't declared war since World War II. President Obama did not seek congressional authorization for the use of military force in Libya, nor did President Trump seek authorization for military action in Syria.
I was interviewing a member of Congress whose name I won't mention at the very moment that we broke into broadcasting to announce that the president was bombing Libya. I said, "You're of the same party as the president. What do you think about this?" "Well, the president doesn't have the authority to do this. We all know that. What are you going to do about it?" Probably nothing. If Gaddafi was so evil that he ought to have been killed by American forces, only the Congress can unleash those forces. Madison could not have been clearer.
These issues have been left to the will and the whim of a small handful of political elites in Washington, D.C. This is scary.
There's right and left, and they control most of Washington, who believe that the president has unlimited power to commit war. These people believe war is always the answer.
The abdication of Congress to its responsibilities over war has had incredibly dire and horrific consequences for the people of our country and, in fact, the world. I want to give you 3 examples. In 1953, the United States government, without congressional approval, thought that it could simply remove the government of Iran, reinstalling authoritarian rule under the Shah. In 1979, the Shah was overthrown in the Iranian Revolution, bringing to power an extremist anti-American government. War in Vietnam. In 1964, Lyndon Johnson cited an attack on a U.S. ship in the Gulf of Tonkin as a pretext for escalating the U.S. intervention in Vietnam. Johnson's administration misled both Congress and the American people into a war that resulted in the loss of over 50,000 American soldiers and over 1 million Vietnamese. Third example, more recently, that we all remember was Iraq. The result of that war, the loss of thousands of brave American soldiers, the displacement of millions of people in the Middle East, and bringing us to where we are right now.
I would argue that the AUMFs are unconstitutional because they don't have an end point, because they unleash the president to pursue who he wants for as long as he wishes to do so. And I would encourage you to repeal those AUMFs, but not to replace them with Corker Kane.
Ready. Freeze it. Oh.
Corker Kane authorization fails us. The Corker Kane authorization does not limit the scope of war. It merely codifies the status quo. Corker Kane authorizes war against at least 8 groups that are known to operate altogether in over 20 countries. Hardly sounds like we'll have any less war. Equally concerning is that Corker Kane unconstitutionally delegates or transfers an enumerated power from Congress to the president. So if the president defines a new associated force that our military will attack, the only way Congress can stop that president is now a 2/3 vote to overcome his veto. The Constitution is flipped on its head. This authorization fundamentally transfers the delegated power of war from Congress to the president.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together.